What's up, everybody? Welcome to BioS 3 Raw TV. Tonight, very different video. First time I'm ever going to do this. I haven't seen anybody else actually do this anywhere on YouTube whatsoever. And I'm putting myself out there, guys. I know for a fact, like, this is going to open up a can of worms, but I don't really care. I mean, this is what it is. So, tonight what I'm going to do is, officially, technically, I'm retired from competing. I'm no longer a competitive bodybuilder. I am an IFBB NPC judge. I'm also a head judge and a national judge here in the Mid-Atlantic zone. Now, with that being said, by becoming a judge and going through the judging process and learning how to be a judge and going through the entire process from start to finish, I've learned so much more about bodybuilding as a sport. Now, all the physique sports, whether it's bodybuilding, physique, bikini, figure, all of them, I learned a lot about this stuff, especially going from judge to head judge. It really does make a difference as to, the things that you're learning about how the whole sport works, like what the criteria is, what you're looking for, why certain people place certain places. It's amazing how little I actually knew when I was competing about this part of the sport, which I do feel like had I had this information, it would have been very important for me to have to do better as a bodybuilder. But that being said, I don't even look the same anymore as far as like my physical size, my physical appearance, my hair, nothing looks the same. So when I look at these pictures of myself back when I was competing in as a bodybuilder, even physique, I don't see myself anymore. It's interesting now as a judge, I see them non-emotionally and objectively to where I can actually pick these apart. And even though it's me, I can do it from a non-emotional standpoint, which means that I can really tear these pictures up. I can really go hard on these just like I would be if somebody on a stage. I also could let my ego take over and be like, oh, well, it was perfect. Like, it could go either way. But the goal is to look at these pictures from a very non-emotional perspective, like it's not me on the screen. And I noticed I was able to do that now. So today what I'm going to actually do is I'm going to walk through, and there's a bunch of pictures. I found some good pictures. There's a ton of pictures of me out there. And I tried to find some of the worst pictures of me out there so I could pick those apart, because I'm like, even in my head, I'm like, it's time to look at these things objectively and really break these things down. And I was like, why shouldn't I just do it publicly? Like, I should do this publicly, not privately, to show you guys that, look, as we evolve, as we grow, we change. Our ideas change, the things that we learn, we grow as an individual. But as I got older, I noticed my ego was getting more and more in check, and I looked at who I used to be and what I used to do and what I used to be, and I realized it's completely different now. Like, it's like almost like I'm two different people now compared to then, which is like the very interesting part. Now, we're going to start off right off the bat with this picture. Was the last time I competed as a teenager. I was 19 years old. My off-season walk-around weight was 205 pounds at 19 years old. By the time I was 20, I was 235 pounds. So I was a pretty big kid coming up once I really started putting my mind to it. 19, I was 100% natural. These trunks that I'm wearing, they're actually like a lime green trunks. And I'm going to start right off the bat and say I'm fat. Like, I'm looking at this picture and I'm fat. I literally walked into the show without dieting at all for it. And I was like, I'm just going to go in, because I was sitting in my mind. This is my last year as a teenager, and I've competed against other teenagers when they were 19, and they were so much bigger. And the judges kept telling me, get bigger, get bigger, get bigger. They weren't telling me, get bigger, but maintain the condition, because that's a no-brainer. But I'm a 19-year-old kid. Tell me to get bigger, I'm going to get bigger. So I decided to come into this contest at about 190 pounds, roughly. And I'm looking at this and I'm fat. I mean, plain and simple, I am fat. There's no lines on my body anywhere. I look smooth like a bar of soap. The tan was terrible. I used Gentana, which, I have a very pale skin. And, well, if I'm not tanning, I have very pale skin. And the tan looks terrible. The posing is the only thing that I look at and I go, the pose itself, the way I'm doing the pose looks good, but I could see a little bit of a love handle hanging over my trunks. I got these lime green trunks that, with the pale skin and the bad tan, I look like I rolled around in mud. I'm like, this is a terrible look. And, to be totally honest with you, this picture, I remember a friend of mine, a close friend, one of my mentors, Eddie DePina, was called upon that day because they needed a judge, and he's one of the ANBC judges. And he's like, all right, yeah. He goes, all right, they asked me to judge. I'm like, cool. So he's like, I hope you're in shape, and he was smiling. He hadn't seen what I looked like. And I was like, but I looked big in my sweats, and everybody thought I had made all these gains. And I went on stage and I looked like absolute dog shit. And I think I got third in this competition. I was big, but I was nowhere near. I wasn't lean. I wasn't conditioned. I wasn't anything. I was just fat. And I came off stage, and he was like, man, he's like, don't do that again, man. He's like, yeah, he's like, it's not good. Like, he was hurt for me. And I remember that, you know, that conversation I had with him, and I was like, yeah, I definitely screwed up. Like, I messed up, and I know it. And, you know, it was a very hard pill for me to swallow because I was leaving the teenage division, and I really wanted to win a teenage title. Like, it was a big thing back then to win a teenage title because a lot of the top guys were winning teen titles before they were moving on to doing better and bigger things, like Jay Cutler, obviously, Branch Warren, these guys. So when I failed to do that, it was a bitter pill to swallow. I mean, the only positive I can say looking at this was that my physique was very balanced for a teenager. My legs are a little weak, of course. I mean, but overall, everything is weak. I'm fat, I'm weak. My hamstrings need to be bigger. My quads need to be bigger. My calves were okay. I needed to be leaner. My chest was okay. My arms were okay. My shoulders needed more size. Overall, I was just a fucking train wreck here. But if you look at the picture up close, I'm smiling. I was having the best time with this big shit-eating grin on my face, even though I knew I looked like absolute shit. I just loved bodybuilding. Like, I loved bodybuilding, and that was just what I love to do, you know? So that was when I was a teenager. Let's see which ones, I don't know, there's really no, I guess, order, like chronological order, age-wise. I'm going to pick them as I see them. Let's see. So this one, I think we'll do this one next. Okay, this one right here is in 2006, and this is at the final Body Rock held here in Virginia at George Mason University. I arrived in 2005 when I decided to compete. Everybody's like, oh, you got to do the Body Rock. You got to do the Body Rock. So this was, I worked with Brad Hollabaugh, who, I don't know if you guys know him. He's the one with the gigantic arms. Like, he's got like 26-inch arms. Brad has been a friend of mine for many years, and I worked with him for this one. And my condition was okay. It wasn't bad. I needed more legs. I'm looking at this now, and I think my shoulders and chest look okay. Chest is a little bit flat. Could use some more size in my chest. Shoulders and arms were always okay. It was, you know, traps were always good. My neck was always balanced too. That was the one thing. I always had a fairly good neck. And my legs are just terrible. Like, my quads need to be bigger. There's no separation in the quads. And I remember after this show, I sent this to Cutler because he would actually help me. I'd give him pictures and he'd send me feedback. This is 2006. And I remember him saying, he goes, oh, it's a good overall look, but get harder. Get harder. And I would agree. I need to be harder here. I need more size in my chest. I need more size in my legs. Absolutely. The tan was not that good again. Overall, though, it was an okay look. You know, I was happy with what I brought. It was, you know, every year was just a different look for me. Some years were bigger than others. This one, I think, weighed in at about 196 pounds. I was a light heavyweight. That weight for me was pretty good. But again, I mean, I think the running theme through my entire bodybuilding competition career was my legs were weak always. My legs were always weak, and condition was always my crux. Like, I always had in my head bigger, 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 and I really loved bodybuilding, you know, and I just wanted to be big. You know, I could maintain mass in the off season, but for me, and this is just for me, in order for me to maintain that mass when I dieted down, I needed to take more drugs. And I was told that by several people. I was told that by my coaches, and I did not want to take more drugs. I don't want to say I was scared, but I respected what the steroids and stuff did. And I always wanted to take as little as I possibly could. Now, did I go up to heavy cycles? I mean, I went up to over 2 grams at one time. I was also told I need to go up to 3 to 5 grams at one time if I really wanted to maintain that size as I dieted or grow into the show and gain even more muscle as I was getting, you know, closer to the show. And, of course, adding things like growth hormone and things like that in there. And I really didn't want to do that. I thought I could do it on my own, and I was 100% wrong, and I failed. But overall, this picture, like, it has a pleasing look to it. It's something that could be used for photo ops and stuff like that. For Instagram, of course, stuff like that. Now, we didn't have that back then. But as far as like a competitor, I wound up literally getting 6th place in this competition. And we had a huge class. It was great. I actually met Phil Heath at this competition. That's where we actually met. I met Gunter for the first time. My family had come out. So my family came down from Rhode Island to this show. And my mom had never been to one of my bodybuilding contests before this time. So it's like I had my mom and dad here. I had my girlfriend here. And you know, I had a bunch of friends here now that was, you know, I had met and they came and my girlfriend made these armbands that said Team Jerry on and they were blue because my favorite color is blue. It was a great overall positive experience, but my physique obviously not up to par. Could be better, you know, absolutely. You know, so from there, that was 2006. Let me see what we got next. This is 2007. And this is going to be, you know, one of my favorite looks to be honest with you, that I had as far as fullness. And this is the Lehigh Valley Championships 2007. So it was 1 year later. And I'm sitting at about 199, so still about the same exact weight. And when I look at this picture, I'm like, this is a really good off-season look. Like, that's what it jumps out to me. I go, this is a really good way to walk around in the off-season. You know, my shoulders were thicker, my chest had come up a little bit since the year before, my arms were bigger, my traps were bigger, legs still down. You know, separation's even worse in my legs. And overall, you know, calves, of course, my calves and arms and shoulders and traps were always pretty good for me. I mean, pretty much everything else on my body lacked. I mean, let's be real, right? I did come in the heavyweight class at 199 pounds. I got second place here behind Lynn Walter, who went on to, he decided, I think, to stop competing and went on to move to Vegas and stuff. But overall, you know, I remember this competition being, you know, testing the waters. Like, could I go in the heavyweights even though I'm not big enough? Like, there was always this question of, like, where do I fit? And I didn't want to be in the lighter classes because I had it in my head. It was drilled in my head, bigger is better. That was constantly drilled in my head because I came from the 90s, guys. When in the 90s, look, the guys are big now. These guys were walking around fucking 320, 330 pounds in the off season, and some of them were fucking, it was just bigger. Dorian was there, Paul Dillette was there, Nasser was there, Kovacs was there. You know what I mean? Lou Frigno was there standing over 300 pounds. There were big fucking guys on these stages. Lavroni was around the 265-pound mark. These guys were just fucking monsters, and bigger is better is what stuck in my head. So this one, great overall off-season look, I think. On stage, not so good. Placed better, but it was more about who I was standing next to than anything else. And this one's actually from the same exact show. So that one was backstage. This one was actually on stage, and you can see the difference between the lighting backstage and the lighting on stage. Now, this one, the side chest pose, I look at this, and if I want to break this down, again, upper body-wise, legs, terrible. I need bigger quads. I need bigger hamstrings. I need more separation. Calves, again, are good. I mean, they're big enough. There's plenty of separation in them and detail in the calves. Arms were big. Delts were big. Chest was big. Everything was full. I was lean, but not lean enough. Again, a great off-season look. But overall, I felt like that fullness was what I really was looking for. Like, I always wanted to have that real full look. And genetically, I just didn't have it. And what it boiled down to is where my body fat was at that time, the things that I was taking, and the things that I did backstage. I actually used a pump product. I remember this. I think it was Metrix made a pump product. And I took it backstage. It was like a drink. I drank like half of it and pumped up. And I literally swelled up backstage and went on stage like that. And everybody was like, wow, you really improved since last year. I'd only gained a couple of pounds. And my condition was better this year than it was at the Body Rock in 06. But it's like a good off-season look. Like, I still am not a good competitor. I think, you're only as good as who you stand next to. I did get second place. I did qualify for nationals. I also decided not to go to nationals because I felt like if I can't win that class and then win the overall, then I don't deserve to go to nationals. Because even if you win the class, you're going to go on to, the national level where those guys are winning their classes and the overalls. So those guys that are winning the overalls, you're going to have to bang heads with them eventually at some point. And over here, I was like, I'm not ready. So I qualified over and over. Like, these people nowadays, like, oh, nationally qualified after one show. It doesn't mean shit. It doesn't mean anything. Like, I qualified about 30, 40 times for nationals, and then finally went to nationals in 2016. Like, it was that long before I went where I thought I had a chance in the class, and it was physique at the time. So, this overall, I like the look. It's a great Instagram look. It's great for pictures. It's great for modeling and stuff. Competition-wise, if the competition was stiffer, I wouldn't have placed as high as I did. So that's just being real. Now, that was 2009. This one is kind of a little bit blurry. I don't remember where... this one was at Pittsburgh. Okay, 2009 in Pittsburgh. Now, this one was a much bigger, fuller look. I was harder. Now, I remember this is the show that Kevin Lavroni trained me for. And we came in at 199 pounds on the button. I was going back in the heavyweights because Lynn Walter, who was actually the year before, or 2 years before I had competed against, was supposed to be going to this competition to compete. And I was like, hopefully I can get there and stand next to him again and size up and see if I improved enough to beat him. It really was him that I was chasing to go after that show. And so Kevin was like, we got to bring it down to light heavy side. I need to go in heavyweights because I want to compete with this guy. So driving up to this show, the physique you're looking at here, I had 7 to 8 meals in within like 5 hours. I had 2.5 gallons of water in me within 5.5 hours. And we get stuck in traffic, so it delayed it a little longer. But when I got there, I barely got on the scale. I thought I was going to pee myself. I barely got on the scale and made weight and then jumped off of there. We decided to dry out overnight, so I don't know what I weighed here. But it was a stacked class. There were a lot of good guys. Lynn actually didn't show up because he wound up not competing anymore. But I was going up against TJ Schuhorn, who was a national competitor who I knew, and a lot of bigger guys. And I weighed 199 pounds. And after prejudging, I realized that not only was I in the first call out, but I was in the top, not top 5, I was in the top 4 or 3. And I wound up running into Rich Gaspari, who was actually one of the judges at the time. And he said, man, he's like, your tan is way off. Like, your legs are so white compared to the rest of you that, you know, the lines in your legs. And at this show, you can see from the picture, if you look, you can see my adductors from my knee all the way right up to my hip. Everything was separated. My quads were feathered. Everything was there this time. The tan really sucked. It looked like I, you know, had rolled around in mud. I used the Jantana stuff. It wasn't a good look. And I remember Kevin telling me, he's like, we should use Protan. I said, no, I really like the Jantana stuff. And it was a mistake. And we tried to put on Protan after prejudging, hoping that it might change my placing, you know, for the night show, which it didn't. And we couldn't get the tan on because once you put oil on, it seals the tan in. Even if you wash it off, that oil will not allow another tan to soak in. And it just messed up the whole overall look. So I wound up getting 4th place at the Pittsburgh that year, which for me was a huge win because it was a huge class. And I knew, like, you know, being able to place in top 5 of that show was a really good thing. You know, and it was great that I got to go with Kevin. He trained me in the gym. He was at my house making me do cardio. He drove with us up to the show. He stayed with us in the room. It was an amazing time. It was an amazing event. But if I had to pick apart this physique, I can tell you right now that this one from the front looks pretty good. And Kevin told me during my posing routine, do not do any poses from the back because my back was lacking that much. So we changed the routine last minute, and he said, don't do any poses from the back. Do everything from the front because that's where you're good. If you do it in the back, you know, you're going to get, you're going to get marked down. So we didn't do it. You know, I changed everything. I did not do any poses from the back. It was very strange because I changed my posing on the fly. And afterwards, when all was said and done, I was actually really happy with this, to be honest with you. No, I didn't win, but placing 4th at the Pittsburgh, which was a huge regional show, and like all the top Olympia competitors were in the front row. Muscular Development was there. Flex Magazine was there. Muscle Mag was there. I mean, every magazine, Muscle and Fitness, they were all there shooting. Like, this was really like the first time Jerry from Rhode Island got in front of all those people in my entire life and jumped on that stage like that and felt good about it. And got a lot of compliments from it too. You know, I think it was just because I was hanging out with Kevin that I got the compliments, but it was an awesome experience, and I think this was an overall good look. Tan needed to be better, legs could be bigger, and back absolutely sucked. So bottom line is, you know, every physique that I've produced has been subpar. I mean, bottom line. Now we head over here to, let's see what this one is here. We're getting down to, this one is also 2009. So this one, the Pittsburgh was in May. And this one that we're looking at right here with the double bicep, I dieted for 3 weeks for this show. So this is basically what I looked like in the off season. I kept it tight. I stayed lean. I was doing different modeling shots and stuff like that because MySpace had been around at the point, and I was starting to build this social media thing and learning how this worked. And I was starting to talk to companies about working with them and stuff like that because I had a look that was good for ads, but not necessarily like a, you know, great competitor look. And this look was 3 weeks in the making. I remember very specifically I picked the song for this routine, which was me and my girlfriend's song at the time. So there was a lot of meaning to this because she lived in Montana. She flew from Montana to Maryland just to be there for me to do this show. She put my tan on with me the night before. She was leaving like the day after the show. Like we only had a couple days to hang out. And it was a great experience. And I thought, you know, overall, you know, I'm looking at this physique, and it's an okay physique. I mean, I need more, of course, more lats. Arms are good. Chest is a little bit better. Shoulders are okay. I need more lats. Waist is tight. Need more legs. You know, legs are small. Let's be real. Legs are small. Always need more legs. They, you know, they're fairly detailed a little bit, but you know, in calves were always good. But bottom line, you know, I think the reoccurring theme of every competition I ever did in my physique was legs. Needed legs. And it's interesting because it wasn't like I didn't train legs hard. I mean, I trained legs with Levroni. I trained legs with, you know, a lot of people that they knew how to train. I had different trainer coaches like Phil Hernan. I worked with, you know, of course, trained with Brad Hollabaugh. You know, I trained with a lot of people that, you know, were like, we just don't understand what the fuck is going on with your legs. And it is what it is, guys. You know, I did heavy, I did high volume, I did full range, I did partial range, I did everything in between. And, you know, it was what it was. It was something for me that, knowing now what I know, the physique that I had, you know, men's physique would have been great for me at this point because my legs just weren't doing it no matter what I did. So that was 2009. Now, we moved from 09 into... This one is going to be the first one up, okay? Because we're going to show 3 pictures from here. So I'm going to show one in the... we'll show the one on stage first, okay? So this is from the Delmarva Championships, the Delaware. So I went out to the Delmarva and I weighed in at, I think, about 186 pounds, I believe this picture is. Light heavyweight. I did get second in this class again. As I'm looking at it right now, I am super flat. But I decided to go from being big and I wanted condition. I said, I don't care what my weight is. I just need to get condition to see what I look like when I get down there. Because, you know, thus far it's second. I'm not hard enough, not hard enough. So at this point I said, okay, I'm not hard enough. Let me see if I can just get dry enough. Because I've been lean but not dry. I want to see if I can get shredded, if I can get dry. And that's what this whole show was about. And I did come in lean, shredded, and dry. I got beat out by a bigger guy who was not lean, shredded, and dry. He actually had fat in his glutes and his lower back. And after the show, I got so discouraged that I went and called Sean Ray. I called Kevin Lavroni. I called Cutler. I called all of them. And I was like, I don't understand how this happens. I sent them the pictures, sent them the videos, and they were like, look, sometimes a bad call happens. We've all had it happen to us, like at the Olympia even. You know, and when you're talking to these guys, you start putting your perspective like, yeah, I guess I can get a bad call too. But it was more about me putting all my eggs in this one basket. I said, if I don't win this show, I retire. I'm done. Like, I've done everything I can. I can't carry the mass without doing what I need to do. If I can get dry and shredded to win this show, I'll keep going. If not, I need to step back and, reassess things. So that's the stage picture. I was dry, I was shredded. Let's move on to the hotel room pictures. Now, this one, doing the hands most muscular, I put my fingers together. We called it the Lucian pose. I'm looking at this and I go, I'm flat as hell. I am absolutely flat. I need more chest mass. I need overall mass on my whole body. My hamstrings are, I got space between my legs. I got like a thigh gap, which makes me look stupid. My quads are bowing out because I was training them like a madman, and they actually did start to grow. But it was like my overall leg didn't grow. It seemed like just like my vastus lateralis started to grow. And you can see my legs are feathered. My adductors are ripped all the way up to my hips. I mean, I was, for all intents and purposes, shredded. I did have shredded glutes in it. My lower back, all that stuff was in. But I lacked the mass. I'm looking at this and I go, yeah, you absolutely lacked mass. And bodybuilding is about mass. It's about muscle. So even if somebody else had a little more fat and I was a lot leaner than them, it didn't matter. Like, it was going to come down to how much more muscle he had than me. And he did have more muscle than me. And we're going to look at, this is another one where I'm just flexing my quad in the same hotel. You can see the feathering in my quad and everything was just really lean, very tight, very dry. And I remember after the show when I got second, I said, that's it, I'm done. And I had actually, said, I was going to do this show the week after, which was the Sean Ray, and I'd already paid for it and the hotel rooms were booked. And when I got back in from that show at the Lehigh, or the Delmarva, I said, this is it, I'm done. Like, I can't. Like, there's no point. Like, it doesn't matter what I do. This is always going to be my placings. Like, I'm always going to run into the fact that either I'm too fat or too small. Like, I can be shredded, I can be big, but I can't make the criteria for what the judges want. I just can't do it. And I went on about a 3 or 4 day week, 3 or 4 day during the week. This was like Saturday, Sunday, Monday, Tuesday. I was eating McDonald's, I was eating KFC, I was eating Taco Bell, I was doing all this shit. And I started to get bigger and fuller, and I was getting tighter. I was staying tight. For a couple of days I got tighter, and then I was staying tight. And then Sean Ray actually called me on the phone. He said, look, that show you did this last weekend, the guy might be coming to my show. So you might be able to stand on stage against him. It doesn't matter where you place. You might be able to beat him in this show if you make some changes. Just think about it, right? And then it started getting in my head, and by Tuesday night, I looked at my girlfriend. I said, and we canceled all the reservations, everything. Like, I wasn't competing. I looked at her. I said, do you think I can compete? And I stripped down, and she was like, let me call the hotel. So she called and booked the hotel. I showed up on Friday to weigh in, and everybody went. They were like, you're going to compete? And I'm like, yeah. Like, friends of mine that were working the show are like, dude, I'm glad you're competing. Like, we knew you were going to compete. You were bummed out. And it was like, I had a lot of support at that show, which was awesome. And I knew in my heart of hearts that this picture was my last bodybuilding competition. I knew it without a doubt. And what happened was I filled right out, and I looked much better than I did the week before. I didn't look like a plucked chicken anymore. But I look at this picture, and as I filled out, my shoulders, my traps, my chest, my arms, everything started to fill out, but my legs didn't fill out. My legs stayed the same. And now I have a very unbalanced physique. I'm very top heavy. I think I got fourth at this show. I didn't even come close, but it was a great experience seeing how far I could push my body from one week to the next, make a drastic change. And I was easily the best poser you know, in that class, and what my music and stuff was. I don't remember the exact song, but I remember when it was all said and done, we were in the elevator, my girlfriend and I, and Sean Ray steps in the elevator. This is before I really knew Sean. And I actually didn't know Sean. I don't even think he knew my name. And he goes, "Hey, man, how you feeling about your placing?" I said, "You know, it is what it is." I said, "But this is my last one, man." I said, "This was my swan song. Like, your show was my swan song. Sean's show was my swan song." So, and he said, he looked me in the eye and said, "Hey, man, I know, you know, you didn't get your placing, which you won." He said, "But your routine was really good." He goes, "You had great poses. They flowed well. Great transitions. Good job." And I walked out of the elevator, and it didn't matter whether I won. I said, because Sean was an amazing poser, right? He could pose, like, he was one of those classic guys that hit those poses perfectly. Great transitions, great music. To have him say that to me was like, and Sean was one of the people that I looked up to when I was younger. To have him say that to me in the elevator made it all worth it. I was like, I don't need to compete anymore. I know what my body's capable of. I know what it's not capable of. I'm not good enough to be on the national level competing and then to move on to the pro level. I'm just not that good. I can do some local shows, get some trophies and stuff. I'm happy with that. I don't need to do it anymore. I don't want to hurt myself. Like, I'm done. And I walked away from that show, and I eventually came back to do physique some years later. And I went on to, you know, really be comfortable with the fact that I gave everything that I had. I made so many mistakes throughout my career. I loved the sport. I loved it. It didn't matter. There were reasons that I did shows other than wanting to compete. And I saved this one for last. And this one is very, this one is a fucking train wreck. And, you know, it's very easy for people to make fun of this picture. And Boston Lloyd is one of those people. Boston loves to take the picture from this show and put it against his, which is his best look. He loves to take my worst look, put it against his best look, and say, "See, Jerry was a shitty bodybuilder." And I'm not making any excuses whatsoever. I look like absolute fucking dog shit in this one. Matter of fact, my legs actually look a little bit bigger in this one. It looks like I brought my legs up. But this is 2011 at the Maryland State East Coast Championship. And I remember specifically this show. I think I weighed in at 211 pounds, which is a strange weight for me. Like, I usually don't compete, and I look like absolute shit. Like, I look not as fat as I did when I was a teenager, but I look terrible. My tan sucks, but fuck it, I'm too small. I look fat. I just look like a troll, like this fucking strange looking, like some dude that looks like fucking shit that decided to compete that day. That's how I look. And I think it's a terrible look. I think it's awful. But when I see this picture, I'm super proud of that picture. That's why it's up there. That's why it's online. I'm proud of what happened in this picture. Now, I saved this one for last because there's a story behind it, and I've told the story, but it's a very important story. So I remember at the Pittsburgh one year, there was this woman who got on stage that looked like jelly. She looked terrible. I was like, what is going on? And everybody was making fun of her, and I kept thinking, why would you do this to yourself? And it was announced at the night show that she lost over 200 pounds, and this was one of her bucket lists, and she got a standing ovation. And even I stood up, and I said, what an asshole I am for doing this. You know, what am I asshole I am for saying that about this lady? Like 200 pounds, like I'll never gain 200 pounds of muscle in my life. She lost 200 pounds. She lost the equivalent of a fucking other person. And she lived out her dreams, and she's happy, and she's crying on stage, and her family gave her flowers. It was this huge thing because she accomplished a goal, and it was a great moment. And I learned a lesson that day. This show wasn't about how I looked. It wasn't about me. So it started out where I had two clients that I was training at the time. One who was always a very heavy guy, and one who wanted to compete and didn't do as well as he had previously wanted the year before. And he was thinking about competing again. And he was just a little gun shy, but he was like, it would be so cool if we could compete together. And at this point, I was like, I wasn't really planning on competing, but earlier in the year, my other client who, and these guys are not just clients, these people are clients that I've been to their weddings, their kids' christenings, birthday parties. Like, they are my friends and even my family to a certain degree, okay? They are my family and friends, and I hold them very dearly, and I would do anything to help them out in a situation. And my friend and client that was really heavy said, you don't know what it's like. You were small when you grew up. You were thin. You don't know what it's like to be heavy and have to get that weight off. And I said, I've been big before, man. And he said, no, but it's not, you don't get it. I said, okay. So I purposely went up to over 265 pounds. Now, they have a fit to fat to fit thing that goes on now online. I did that in 2011 before anybody knew what the fuck that was. So I went up to over 260 pounds and had, excuse me, a short period of time to this show. And the show wasn't even really on the radar yet. And I said, I'm going to do it with you. I'm going to lose the weight with you. I'm going to gain it, and we're going to lose it together. We dieted together. I went up to 265 pounds. I think he was right around 250, 255. And we started to come down together. And that's what we were doing. Honestly, I think that's the best shape he ever got in was when we were doing that together. And at the same time, while I was training this other client, I said, you know what? He was like really apprehensive about it. He said, it would be really cool if we could do it together. I said, you know what? Fuck it. We'll do the show together. I committed to do the show with him no matter how I looked. I said, I got this much time. I'm going to put as much work into it as I can. I just gained about 50 pounds of fat specifically to help out this other client. But I don't give a shit. Like, I don't care. At that point in my life, my ego was kind of being suppressed. You know, I was looking at them thinking that I know that he can do this and I know he can do that, but I got to lead by example. And if I don't lead by example right now, there's no reason for them to trust me if I can't do that. And it was hard because I knew I was going to get blasted for this. And get this, my cousin Trisha and her husband Steve, they came down from Rhode Island and went to this show. All my friends went to the show here. It was a big, big fucking deal. I actually got on stage against Aaron Clark. IFBB Pro Aaron Clark was in my class, and I looked like that. When they said heavyweight stripped down, I started taking my clothes off. He was standing next to me, and I looked at him. I said, this guy's in my class? I was like, you gotta be shitting me. Like, it couldn't have been a more humiliating experience for me to get on that stage that day, and I was like, I don't fucking care. I do not give a shit. I'm getting on that stage. We're going to compete together, and afterwards, we're going to eat together, and this is how we're going to do it. Because I know that you can get to the show, and I'm going to get there with you. And I did. And we did. We did the show. It was an amazing experience again. Not my best look. It didn't fucking matter. And I knew those pictures would be out there, and I don't deny it. Looked like absolute dog shit. But there's a story behind every picture for everybody. And I'm old enough now, and my ego's in check now enough to know that when you see somebody in the picture, sometimes there's more to what's going on than what you see. In this picture, I think, this is probably one of the ones I'm most proud of. I was able to help two friends that from at that point on, they knew what they were capable of. They knew they could do it because we did it together. And at the same time, I got to show them that, hey, I can practice what I preach. I'm not just telling you guys what to do. I do it. I've been doing it for 20 years. I will never ask you to do something that I don't do or won't do myself or haven't done myself. And I'll do it again. I'll do it with you. Look, let's go. And I think back to how much work it was to get that 60 plus pounds off. I mean, it was like 211. I dropped like 55 pounds in like something crazy, like 8 weeks or something like that. It was a total crash course. It was so hard on me physically and mentally just to get down to this. And I probably had realistically about a good another 8 weeks of dieting if I wanted to be in shape from here. Like I would have never made it. Like my body would have gave up at the pace that I was pushing. But the bottom line was I accomplished the goal, even though the goal wasn't winning, the show. But I also got to compete against Aaron Clark. A lot of people, Aaron didn't do that many shows before he turned pro, so not a lot of people are going to be able to say, hey, I stood side by side with Aaron Clark, and Aaron's actually a friend of mine. He's a great guy. We became friends after that, like way after that. But and he probably doesn't even remember the show, to be honest with me. Me standing next to, because I was so nobody at the time. Like, not like I'm anybody now, but I was so like bad on stage that everybody else at the show, the bikini girls look. We even had bikini back then. Bottom line, even the figure girls looked better than me at that point, But the bottom line was there was a story behind this one. I'm not embarrassed about it. I think I look like, as a judge, I look at this and go, if this guy came up to you right now, I'd be like, look, you need another 2.5 months of hard dieting to get your ass in shape. But the bottom line is that's where it ended up, and that's the story behind it. So, yeah, looking at these, I guess overall, if I wanted to wrap everything up and sum it up, I'd have to say that for me, my entire career, I wasn't a badass bodybuilder. I was told that I was a good bodybuilder. Might have been good in some lineups, but anything competitive, I wasn't really a good bodybuilder. Definitely wasn't a great bodybuilder. I was not a national level competitor, even though I had qualified. I wasn't a pro level whatsoever in any way, shape, or form. I never would have been. I think my legs were always weak. I think that my tan was almost always off. I think my chest, as I got a little bit older, got thicker and balanced out. And then towards the end, I had good shoulders, traps, chest, arms. Back was always weak again. I had more weaknesses than I didn't, but overall the bone structure flowed fairly well, and I think the bone structure was what I looked at in these pictures that made it like the physiques. Even though I wasn't good enough to win, it was appealing to stuff like social media and stuff. It was appealing to the general population out there because to them they didn't realize that I wasn't good enough. They just saw the aesthetic flow to my physique that it had and how my body parts kind of matched up. And a lot of people like that. So bottom line, I don't think there's anything I could have done different that would have made me successful as a national level competitor. I don't think there's anything I could have done different that would have made me a pro bodybuilder. And even if I had gotten to those levels, I think it would have been very dangerous for me to be up there doing what I needed to do to be good at that level, if I could even get good at that level at all, at the national level. So bottom line is, if physique had been around back then, I consider myself too hardcore, and I probably was too prideful to try physique. But that division for people like me would have been, like Gary Udis says, the home run. It would have been the home run hit for me, because I would have been able to compete and hide my flaws and show my strengths. And that's why we created the physique division to begin with. And that's why we have, you know, the classic physique division. That's why we have the 212 division. We created divisions for people that genetically didn't have what it took to be in the open bodybuilding heavyweight classes. You know, that's why we have bantamweight, lightweight, welterweight, middleweight, light heavies, heavies, super heavies. We have 7 divisions now. They didn't have that when I first started out. You know, and many shows didn't even, they only had a lightweight and a heavyweight because the shows were small. So bottom line is, things have evolved. They've, you know, the NPC and IP have come up with new divisions to give people a chance to compete that their physiques technically, genetically just won't do it. And I think that's a good thing. You know, having a place for people to go and experience what I experienced through this whole journey is amazing. I learned so much about myself, other people, how to be around other people, how to build my businesses, and I got to enjoy my life doing this. I enjoyed every second of it, and now I enjoy my life judging. So it really was and is an amazing experience, and I'm so happy that I went through it. And like I said, I know I'm opening myself up to get torn up with these, and I'm totally cool with it. Like, by all means, tear away. Go ahead. It's not like I haven't heard it before. And, you know, I've had critics before that have torn me up. But I can tell you guys this right now, no matter what you say, no matter what Boston Lloyd says, no matter what anybody says, none of you will be harder on me than I am on myself. No, my younger self, not hard on myself. Younger self, ego out of control. Myself now, very hard on myself. And I see things in myself now that you guys don't even see that are flaws, that you guys probably like, who cares? I care. I see them. And I'm aware. And I think that is personal growth. Hopefully you guys enjoyed this video. It's a little bit long, but it's very different. Like I said, I've never seen a judge break down their own physique, you know, over the years on a video that was legit. I've never seen it done. I said, you know what? I've done a lot of things for the first time on YouTube. Why not this? BioStreetTraining@gmail.com. Leave comments down below, but don't fight. BioStreetTraining.com is a blog. It's the breaking down my own physique bicep. It's still there. And we are out.